Hey, what's up guys, it's Next Time. I've recently been playing Among Us, a game that was propelled into some serious popularity by YouTubers. A game's streamability is proven to be one of, if not the biggest factor that determines a game's success at the time of this video. As fun as that game is, I do believe there are things that can be tweaked to make Among Us a smoother experience. For those of you unfamiliar with the game, let me quickly go through what the game is to better explain my recommendations to improve the experience. There is no spoiler warning, as I do believe there are no spoils to warn about. The game is very much pick up and play. I will also explain the concept I'm coining as trust credits that appear to be central to the game, and how some of the game's mechanics run counter to this game's core. Among Us, developed by Inner Sloth, is a game where a group of 10 or so people on board a spaceship run around doing tasks in the form of small minigames that take up the entire screen. Among them, are 1, 2, 3 imposters whose job it is to go around and kill everybody before they complete their tasks. When a body is reported or someone calls an emergency meeting, the real game starts, where you sit with whoever is left in the chat room to discuss who was where, doing what, and who they think the imposter is. Everyone then has a chance to vote someone off that spaceship, banishing them to the Shadow Realm. The crew members win if they manage to complete all their tasks before they are killed, or if they manage to kick off the imposters first. The imposters win if they manage to kill enough crewmates, depending on the amount of imposters left. This means that if there are 2 imposters left, then they need to kill enough crewmates to where there are only 2 crewmates left alive. If there's 1 imposter left, then to win they need to have 1 crewmate left alive. Currently on Steam, Among Us doesn't hold the party game tag, but I sincerely think that the game is at its best when viewed in that light. And also because on the Steam store page it says that it was created as a party game in mind. Being a party game, it's important to come into this game with the proper mindset of playing for fun rather than playing to win. Some of these conversations can get pretty heated, and if you're not careful, you'll end up hurting some feelings. I'm sorry. I do highly recommend playing with voice chat using Discord, Google Hangout, or whatever. It adds a whole new dimension to the game, and it's especially fun with people you know. This game also offers a plethora of configuration options, so you can adjust to play however you want. For this review, I will be focusing on the recommended options, as I interpret that as the intended way to play. That will be the focus of this video, understanding that the recommended settings run counter to the core gameplay, and why they should be turned off as the recommended settings. I'll also introduce a new suggestion to help lower the learning curve for this party game. In order to explain the changes I want to make, I do first have to explain the main concept that I believe is core to Among Us, and that's the idea of trust credits. Again, I coined this, I made it up, please don't look it up. The main game of Among Us takes place during these meetings. This is where you get to talk to your fellow crewmates to try to figure out who the bad guys are. It's here where your trust credits come into play. Say for instance you're in your first game, and you hard suspect someone. Us cool kids, we call that sus, short for suspect. And you convince the crew members to vote them out, only to find out that you were wrong. Here you just lost some trust credits. Then imagine that in the next game, you again make a compelling argument as to why such and such is the imposter, only for everyone to vote them out again and them to be innocent. Here you've also lost some trust credits. Now say in the third game you legit see an imposter kill someone and hop an event. You report the body, but when you tell people what's up, no one believes you, because you're out of trust credits. You've given them false leads for a while that people don't want to believe you even if you're telling the truth. The idea of these trust credits is really what Among Us appears to be centered around, because that's the main game element at play here. When you vote someone out and it's not the imposter, everyone can have an opinion on what happened. And if you hard sus someone and no one believes you, only for you to have been right in the end, that's also hilarious. My personal opinion is that this is where most of the fun comes from. Another example of these trust credits is that they could be earned during gameplay. Say for instance you and a random buddy decide to follow each other for a little bit and a body is called. You can then confidently vouch for each other, knowing that at least for this kill, your buddy isn't the imposter. So if there's ever a time when it comes down between you and him and a random third person, you'll know who to vote. If this trust credits concept isn't the focus of the game's design, then I urge the developers to adopt this because I strongly believe that this is the heart of Among Us. They lead to shaky truces, backstabbing, spreading misinformation. It makes for a fun time with the right group of people.
I'll say.
I'm sorry. Given this, there are gameplay systems that run counter to this idea of trust credits that I feel need to be removed from the game's recommended settings in order to improve the experience of the game. The idea of trust credits gets devalued when in the game you can prove your crew by completing certain tasks. In case you haven't noticed, certain tasks the crew can perform have an effect that is visible to anybody standing nearby. For example, in the Skilled, I don't know if I said that right, the garbage task, when completed, allows you to see garbage being pushed out of the spaceship. During the weapons minigame, you can see the guns clearly firing. The med bay has this long scan animation that everybody can see, and the shields light up after being completed. This is a very effective way of clearing crew members from being an imposter, because imposters can't do any of these visual tasks. This won't tell you who the imposter is, but it tells you the opposite of who is true, blue, 100% crew. These visual proofs go almost unnoticed by people who first start playing the game. Then, after a while, once anybody who's privy will start using them to win games and let other people know what to look for to prove that they're crew. This devolves the game into what I call task watching, where people would ask to be followed so they could prove they were crew, making it harder for the imposter to win. This to me runs counter to the spirit of the game's trust credits and the idea of spreading misinformation. How can you set up backstabs or frame someone if they're already proved to be innocent? This makes it incredibly easier for the crew members to win, which, in a party game, winning is not necessarily the goal of the game. This is why I recommend the visual tasks be turned off by default in the configuration settings. The recommended way to play shouldn't include these because it makes the game too easy for crew members to win, and it allows the game to devolve into just task watching. Now, it's easy for me to sit and criticize this mechanic, so allow me to offer a solution. A better solution, in my opinion, would be to just let the imposter do any task as often as he wants. Imposters completing the task won't have any effect on the fact that it's the crew members that need to complete tasks to win. And with this approach, you can keep the nice animations while at the same time removing the ability for crew members to prove their innocence on the map. Boom. 2 birds with 1 stone. Keep your nice animations while preventing the game from devolving into task watching. Another big gameplay system that runs counter to the trust credits idea is the green bar on the top left that everybody can see during the game. This taskbar fills up a smidge when crew members complete a task, and it ends up serving 2 functions. The first function, which I think is the intended design, is to allow crew members and the imposter to know how much work needs to be completed before crew members win. This acts like a makeshift timer for imposters, letting them know that they don't have a lot of time before crew members take the win, and it also provides hope for crew members seeing how close they are to winning the game. The other function, which I argue runs counter to the spirit of the game, is that this bar fills up when crew members complete a task. In other words, it's another way for crew members to prove their innocence in the game's map. Again, once the players realize this, then the game devolves into what I call bar watching, where people stare at other people do tasks to see if the bar goes up. This runs counter to the trust credits that makes the gameplay fun. If people watch other people do tasks, then it makes it almost impossible for the imposter to blend in effectively. As an imposter, you can't perform any of these visual tasks that have an effect on the map, and attempting to fake one by standing by it is essentially you proving you are an imposter. And since you can't even fake any basic tasks because the green bar won't go up, how exactly are you supposed to blend in? Who knows, you might get lucky and have a crew member complete a task while you're faking it, eh? But that's not a consistent strategy for imposters to take. So how do you fix this? I do have a few solutions for this problem. The first is to obviously get rid of it. It runs counter to the game's core, so it's better off without it. The second is to not make this taskbar accessible to everyone while they're in the map. It should only be accessible during the meetings. called this meeting to let you guys know that an update has just released that allows you to configure the bar to only update when the meeting is called. Configuring this accordingly essentially gets rid of bar watching so you can have a fairer game. Thank you! I wrote this suggestion before the update. It's good to see that it's configurable now, even though it was pushed out before I made the video. I do have another solution that I think better resonates with the spirit of the game. Again, the bar is already there, no need to remove it. Instead, we implement my previous idea of letting the imposter complete any tasks, and at that point, the game should give the imposter credit on the bar for everyone to see. This gives the taskbar a sense of unreliability, and I think it would be hilarious to see the green bar extend way past to the end of the taskbar itself. This could lead to confusion of not knowing where the crew stands to win by tasks, and obviously, there has to be a way to manually reset it. This approach lends itself nicely to a few key things. First, it doesn't run counter to the trust credits idea, because the information of the bar is giving is unreliable. The second is that it incentivizes the imposter to blend in and do tasks to look busy, so some people think he's doing work. And third, if you allow this bar to be manually reset somewhere on the map so that crew members can take a true count of the tasks that need to be completed, then they can also open themselves up to a possible attack by the imposter who knows that at some point someone's going to want to fix this. This new mechanic would operate sort of like cameras. They provide a lot of value, but at the same time, you're left vulnerable to attack. If you notice, these suggestions I'm proposing also have an added benefit to them besides working with the trust credits idea. And that is that they are predictable and easy to learn. Party games by nature are games where you pick up and play on the spot. You want the learning curve to be as small as possible so that everyone playing can enjoy the game. If you make the systems too deep, then you increase the skill gap between experienced players and new players, leading to imbalanced games that'll lead to a bad experience. These two suggestions of removing task watching and bar watching also help reduce the learning curve for new players because they won't know to look for them even though experienced players will. This skill gap is relatively small because when you're sussing someone out, you typically have to give up proof. And if you bust out with one of these, did you know you could task watch? Everybody knows the deal and everybody learns. This game is very good at having experienced players teach new players how to play. However, there is one thing I also think should be changed from the game because of the learning curve, and those are the vents. The maps, except one, don't allow you to vent everywhere. They're niche in their implementation, and I think that's counterintuitive to the game's learning curve. People coming in aren't going to have enough time to figure out that on this particular map, this particular vent gets me this particular here and only here. Or that this vent only gets me to this vent and that's it. I argue that in order to make the game as easy as possible to pick up and play, all vents need to be connected together so that the imposter can teleport wherever they want. This implementation, however, I would definitely want to be configurable because I don't know if this mechanic would be overpowered and make it too easy for imposters to win. There's definitely hints in the game that suggest that the game designers believe this mechanic was too strong. For example, in the Skeld and Polis, the vents don't all connect to each other. They are niche in their implementation and the imposter needs to know these to take full advantage. You can also see this in Mirror HQ where all the vents are connected. But there's a logging system that tracks where people are coming and going to help crew members figure out who was where, and tripping one of these sensors by accident could lead to an easy sus from the crew member who can read that you went into a place and came out from somewhere completely different. The second mechanic that I took as a clue that venting was overpowered was that your kill cooldown doesn't continue while you're in the vent. If you could just hide in the vents and wait for your kill cooldown, pop out from anywhere and kill someone just to hide again isn't a very fun experience. Having the cooldown freeze while in vents forces the imposter to try to blend in with the crewmates, making the meeting zone more enjoyable experience. Despite these warnings, for the sake of lowering the skill curve, I argue that this should at the very least be a setting and let the players determine for themselves how they would like to play. In the current state of the game, an experienced imposter can make use of the vents, but a new player might find them a bit clunky and risky to pull off. Now, these suggestions are my attempt at trying to make the game's party game aspect a more enjoyable experience, because this game is definitely a lot of fun with people you know and who you can talk to. I don't make these suggestions lightly either. I can see how much of a daunting task it must be to try to balance this game to where it feels fair to both crew members and imposters. There's also a few things the game needs in order to feel complete, and are more obvious that I don't think need to be explained, so I'll just list them out. The game needs voice chat, there's no friends list, there's plenty of bugs, hackers, griefers that either leave if they're not imposter or hit the emergency button to say something stupid. There doesn't appear to be a way to permaban people who are consistently abusive to other players. And lastly, the game doesn't offer enough game modes out of the box to break up some of the gameplay. I would love to see hide and seek be an actual mode instead of a gameplay configuration. Or maybe a minigame gauntlet where crew need to compete to see who can finish all their tasks the quickest. Or a boss imposter where everyone can see the imposter and you have to survive for a period of time before they kill everyone, kind of like freeze tag. As my video ages, please understand that this game has turned into a bit of a live service. Among Us 2 has been cancelled so the devs can focus on Among Us 1. Because they are now actively supporting the game, I hope you understand that some of my suggestions, like how bar watching is a thing, might get fixed in future updates to the game. You know, like how it actually was when I wrote the script. The game is heaps of fun, and in these uncertain times, in the midst of a pandemic, it's online multiplayer games like these that can best help bridge the gap between being socially distant, but allowing us to play as if we were all together. I don't know how long Among Us's popularity will last, but I certainly do hope that developers take their game in the best direction possible. As always, this is to start a discussion. Do you guys agree with my analysis? Do you guys disagree? How would you change Among Us for the better? And why? Leave a comment below, I'm super curious. That's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm sorry.
You're yelling again.
Are we doing this again?
You're still yelling.
Are we doing this again?